over the next 2 days, we're going to figure out what the Abyss meta will actually be. Today, we're going to take a look at the controllers and Sentinels. Tomorrow will be the Duelists and Initiators. Okay, so let's begin. And first, let's start with Astra. And Astra has some nice things on this map. Obviously, this is quite a big map with pretty long rotate times. So being able to obviously, you know, put utility across the map is just going to be quite useful, right? That's just going to be a pretty good thing because it is a pretty big map. So Astra obviously is going to benefit from that in general. There are some other nice things that Astra, I think, can do. For instance, if you're on the attacking side here and, you know, you want to go across here and you want to just, you know, kind of quickly get across, you know, doing a little recall star. You do want to place it slightly to the left so that it covers across the little gap there, but then, you know, doing a little recall, getting across here, quite a nice little thing, right? Similar to kind of like on Pearl Be Long, that kind of thing. Obviously, the Astra ult as well is going to be very useful because you're going to get these post-plant spams. I mean, this is ridiculous. This will change on this map, and it needs to change. But if you plant the spike there, you know, it's going to be a very common post-plant to just come and play back here, go for spam. You can actually spam through this wall as well, not just there, but you can spam from here, you can spam from there, you know, you can even spam all the way down here. And all be hitting the spike from all of these different angles from this very safe position. You can see you even can get it from just here if you get the angle just right. So yeah, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a massive, major problem here in general. But obviously, Astra is pretty good if you've got an ult, right? Like, if you've got an Astra ult, then obviously, defense side, we just ult across. Free win, basically. And I do expect that that will become the meta, because there's no way it doesn't, because that's going to be incredibly annoying to play against and incredibly strong. So, yeah, if you can get the spike down here, the Astra will hopefully will be a free win for the spam post plants that are definitely coming. Now, there is one problem, and this isn't just for Astra, this is kind of for all dome smokers, which is where do you actually smoke on this B site? Because it's an interesting one, because you might think, oh, well, you'll smoke this, right? But are you actually going to smoke this? Like, are you really going to take all the control all the way up to here? Maybe sometimes you will, you know, particularly if you've got like a big ult that, you know, can help you take the site. Maybe sometimes. But I wouldn't suspect that that will be the majority of cases, that as you're kind of flooding up and you're dealing, you know, you're looking for people coming out this way, you're trying to deal with someone maybe on the back site, right? Are you really going to have all of this control? I actually don't know if that will necessarily be the case. And so if, you know, taking all this control is going to be too much for you, where would you smoke, right? Because the thing is, you might smoke, oh, well, you'll smoke just here, right? But if you smoke just here, that has a problem as well, that it's not big enough. And Astra Stars are bigger than, you know, Brim and Omen smokes and Clove smokes and all of that. But you can see that this actually isn't big enough to cover all of this and will have a gap. So you actually kind of can't smoke this with a dome. And also there's going to be, you know, like smoking this is not going to be easy either. Obviously, you would think that just doing this as a smoke is going to be, you know, the norm. And it probably will be. But you know, this is still a very big platform, you know, on a high elevation that, you know, it comes all the way around to here, you know, comes, you know, I mean, as you come out here, you can be seen particularly with an op, this kind of op angle, like, there's going to be a lot to kind of deal with here on this B site when you're coming up, and just having one dome smoker probably isn't going to be enough, to be honest, to, you know, effectively smoke off this site. Okay, next up we have Brimstone, and, well, Brim, obviously the range concerns, and this is going to be true for Clove as well, you know, the range is going to be a concern, right? That if I wanted to smoke off B, if they're coming to B, and, you know, for instance, I'm playing A, like, just, let's see how close I actually have to get, right? I have to run a long way before I can smoke this off, right? I have to be on, you know, kind of the B side of mid just to get there. So obviously that is a pretty big limitation for Brim in general. I do think that Brim, you know, will have the advantage of, again, I will suspect that the method that you will see develop on this map, you know, not straight away and maybe not as much in ranked, but particularly for high play, is going to be planting the spike and just running away and, you know, playing a spam post plant. And obviously Brim, you know, with a Brim molly into something like that will be pretty good. Obviously the ult will be pretty good, you know, for the post plant as well. So there will be some advantages to Brim, but I think that this is going to be akin to playing a Brim on Icebox, right? Where, again, the reason that you're doing that really is for that post plant molly, is for that post plant ult, and those are really the only main strengths that Brim has. Okay, moving on to Clove, and obviously Clove has the same range problem as Brim, and obviously when you die, you know, you'd assume that the range will be a problem for a lot of places where you die, that you might not be able to find effective smokes, you know, after your death. There really isn't too much to talk about with Clove, because obviously Clove's abilities are kind of just you know, generally similar. Obviously, we did see some Clove nerfs. You know, the pick-me-up costs more. You know, the ult is now an 8-cost ult as well. So there are, you know, Clove is a bit worse in general as well. But I think, again, like, a high-level play, this map is just too big for Clove in general. Okay, now let's close out the Dome Smokers here with Omen, and Omen obviously does have, you know, some advantages to obviously the elevations, right? The cool little trick plays that you can do. I'm assuming that Omen will be a fairly popular pick, you know, because of these kind of things. And obviously, you know, that does benefit Omen in general. Obviously, the flash is just good. There's really nothing else to say. The flash is just a good ability pretty much everywhere, right? Whatever you're doing, you know, on defense side, something like this. On both sides, really, you know, just aiming the flash, something like that is going to be really good, right? Like, the flash is just good pretty much all the time. The ult actually will be fairly good as well, right? Again, this is a big map. You know, people probably won't be in spawn too much, particularly early on. Obviously, you've got the ace secret here to TP to potentially as well as Omen. Like, you know, the ult is actually going to find some value, particularly on attack side, and just for rotating fast on defense side could be very useful as well. So the ult is actually a bit better here. The one thing that's kind of lacking for Omen in general is one-ways, actually. You know, defensive one-ways for Omen are somewhat lacking. Obviously, you can put it on this box, but every controller, you know, can do this one. Like, this one is just kind of ubiquitous, but there isn't, like, any, like, special Omen one-ways, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't really find, like, a good one for this. You know, like, see that it's all kind of red. There isn't really a proper one-way here, which would have been really good if there was, right, to control this first part of A. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be, at least not that I could find. And similar sort of story over towards B. There is, you know, kind of a one-way back here, somewhere here on the window, I think. And whilst, you know, it does kind of give you a one-way, of course, there are still problems that you're going to need. It's not like you can just sit there on your own and hold it, right? Like, you're going to need someone else to hold you from this angle in general. So, you know, it's going to have to be a bit more a team thing. It's not like a Sent on A, right, where you can just set up your one-ways over and over again and just be fine. But it's not, I wouldn't call it necessarily like a clear Omen map. Okay, now let's talk about Harbor, because Harbor can, of course, kind of fix some of this problem, right? That if you come and do a wall a bit better than me there, but you get the idea of it coming across here, you know, and it comes across there, you know, this is fully smoked. But you might be like, oh, but there's a gap here, right? People can see. But that can be fixed somewhat as well with a cascade. Because if you send a cascade up with the wall here, you know, you can end up with something that looks like this, and there is no gap in it, you know, if you have a cascade up there as well, you know, with the wall going across. And the cascade is obviously helping you scale up this part as well. You know, that's a pretty effective way of smoking off B, much more effective than kind of anyone else. So that's quite good. Also, I think for smoking mid, which I haven't really talked about because I don't think that it will be a super prominent way of playing the map once things develop, to be honest. But smoking mid for Harbor is also just going to be a bit easier, I think, as well, right? Like just doing a wall across something like this. Again, it's going to be a more effective way of smoking mid than, you know, like having to use 2 full dome smokes for this, right? And you don't have any smokes left. Like, that's just going to be more effective. Same for, you know, just pushing a cascade down here and scaling up with it, right? Same sort of deal where, you know, again, this cascade is just going to be pretty good, right? Allow us to come in here, right? Just pretty good, right? For Harbor in general there. In terms of mid as well. Obviously, the ult will be good for both sides, really. You know, the ult covers everything you want it to pretty much on both sides of the map, so that's going to be good. I haven't talked about smoking A too much because, you know, it's just going to be pretty simple, I would have thought, most of the times, although you could go for something a bit shallower if you wanted to. But, you know, again, the ult on both sides is going to be good. And of course, we are talking about a map that I think will be heavy spam post-plant type stuff, which again, of course, Harbor is going to be good against, right? You think about, you know, some of Harbor's best maps like Pearl, like Icebox, same sort of deal, right? Harbor, of course, with a Cove is going to be good against that kind of stuff, right? For diffusing the spike, getting on it, threatening that. So yeah, Harbor, I actually think is going to be a pretty good option in general. Yeah, I would, if you are a Harbor main, one of the few Harbor mains, then I think this map is going to be pretty good for you. Okay, and then finally onto Viper. The barrier starts about here, and some kind of wall maybe like this could be part of your defensive setup. You have to be kind of careful to make sure that you get one of the little nozzles on that part to make sure that it actually does cover it, because otherwise it won't. And then, you know, you can come across here, and then when the barrier drops, you know, just throw your orb in here, or you know, maybe even try a one-way. Let's see if I can do this. You know, something like that maybe. You could even put your orb up there, right? Have the one-way kind of permanently set up if you wanted to, right? So some kind of setup like that, I would assume, would be the best defensive setup for Viper. That way you're covering both sides of the map, which again will be pretty important on such a big map like this. In terms of defensive ults, I think you'll pretty much always just be ulting out here towards A main. You know, this is just going to be a very good Viper spit, right? Come and sit somewhere like this. You know, just watch this part. Like, I think this is just going to be the best one. And then on attack, I kind of really like a certain Viper wall like this, right? Where you're coming across, kind of aiming towards kind of the backside just here. In general, I think this will be a very good Viper wall to do. You know, because not only does it allow you to kind of, you know, get past this first part of A if someone is being aggressive here, right? It allows you to sneak up, you can drop the wall, you can clear this close corner, you know, you can then kind of come and slowly clear out the rest of A here, make sure that they're not there, and then of course you can put the wall back up and sneak onto site essentially. And I do think that this will be a main plant spot, so you know, you might want to get to this position, or obviously you could come round at the back site as well with this kind of stuff, whilst you know, people from here can't really see what's going on. And so some kind of lurk wall like this, I think, will be incredibly effective. If you're playing Viper as a solo controller, you know, you could just go for obviously something a bit more straightforward, I guess, in general, right? Just something like this will be fine. If you wanted to do that, again, it gives you that kind of lurk up space just here, and then obviously just kind of wall that off. Like, that could be one way if you were playing as a solo controller. But I do think that that lurk wall, and I do think double controller will be probably the correct choice here, as it is on most maps. In terms of placing your orb, I mean, that is an interesting debate, and I don't think there is a correct answer right now. Did think about doing maybe certain lineups for this angle, right? That you put your orb on here in combination with the wall that comes across here. That way, just no one can kind of be up on top, you know, as you're kind of rounding this angle. Just gonna push people off that angle as you're coming in. So that one could be fairly useful, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of other opportunities to use it, you know, on mid, or again, it's like an orb here, right, to again help you cross and that kind of stuff over towards B, right? So if you imagine you put an orb, you know, somewhere in like this, you know, it's going to help you obviously cross across. It means that you're hidden from like little up angles like that. Obviously you can walk all the way up potentially and then just start your exec from here, which is going to be very good. So yeah, something in those kind of realms I would assume is going to be pretty strong. So that is the controllers. To me, it would go like Viper would almost be a certainty for, you know, a lot of people on this map. And then you're probably looking at, like, I would say mostly Harbor and maybe a bit of Astra, maybe some Omen in there as well. But I personally would say that Viper Harbor, I think, is actually the controller route that I would go for. Okay, and now on to the Sentinels. Let's start with Chamber. So we're only going to focus here on the defense side for Chamber, but there are some nice little setups that you can do, right? So for instance, I'm thinking, you know, just something simple like this. And this will be an op-heavy map, right? This will be a very op-heavy map, you know, so if you're thinking like, you know, something like this, and then you can just TP down here, right? That could be okay, or even a similar sort of thing, but obviously with the TP in this side instead, right? Similar sort of deal. Play this angle just here, right? Looking for an op. Obviously, we can't see the window. You might even want to come and run and, you know, at the start of the round, just put like a trap down there, just to cover you off on that side, and then, you know, literally just hold this, TP away. We're good, right? Like, that's going to be a really nice setup, and this is going to be an op-heavy map. In terms of other setups, you know, before the barriers drop, you can come and put this down as well. This is a really kind of nice idea, I think, in general. Probably more for a rifle round, but because the barriers start pretty far back for the attacker here in mid, you will be able to get up to this box pretty reliably. And then you can see I'm actually in a safe position here to TP back away, you know, to this corner, actually out here in mid. It kind of doesn't look fully like it on the map, but it just about touches. So if you're just on this edge, you know, watching this, you can TP away. That one's quite nice as well. And then over towards A, of course, you know, again, you're going to have some fairly decent, you know, just pretty safe TPs get set up. Again, if you can get an op on this angle, right, if you can get your op up to here, then you're in a good spot, right? Because now, if they're coming to A, they're coming at you with an op, you know, boom, dead, TP away. Should be pretty safe if you can get up there. So yeah, if you get a bit of support early on in a round, this is going to be pretty strong, and I think that there are enough good chamber setups, and of course, again, there's some elevation that you can use maybe as chamber, right? I mean, even just playing on top of this, right, and TPing, you know, somewhere backside, like, it's going to be fine, you know, or even potentially in here as well, right? Like, this is all going to be absolutely fine. There's going to be no problem with, you know, doing stuff like this as well. You know, playing an angle like this, TPing back here, that's going to be fine. You're going to be safe. It's going to be pretty good, you know, between the elevation and this will be an op-heavy map. I think the chamber actually is a pretty good option. Okay, then on to Cypher, and obviously Cypher has some advantages. It's a very big map. I'm sure there's been some Cypher main out there that's, you know, shown you all the crazy setups if you are a Cypher main. I'm not really the guy for that, but I'll just talk in general that I do think that Cypher will be pretty good on this map because it is a big map, so, you know, global utility going to be pretty good. You know, there's a lot of elevation, so you can get some cameras into some pretty crazy positions, I would assume. I don't know all of them, but I'm sure there are some, you know, crazy cameras out there somewhere that you can get onto. Also, obviously, like, having the global presence. Tripping mid, obviously, like, from where the barriers start, like, you know, there isn't an easy way to kind of trip all of this. So probably a camera would be, you know, the better option, you would think. You know, for kind of covering mid in general, right? If you just wanted to check it every so often, because again, mid will probably be a pretty lurk space, which again kind of helps Cypher in general. And then on B, I didn't think there was as many amazing setups just from like my quick glance over towards this side. Again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some crazy setups that do exist, but you know, I'm sure that someone else will have found them if they do exist, right? But you know, there are some interesting trips. It's not like you can do nothing. And again, like this camera, you do have to remember though that, like, again, because of this kind of like barrier at the start that doesn't let you jump off, it does mean that you can't put a camera here outside of the map to begin with, but you can then once the barriers drop, right? So if you wanted to put a camera like here, for instance, that, you know, spots just this little corner just there, you know, that's one that you can do. This is also a camera that I found that I thought was, you know, fairly decent, where you can kind of just see them before you, for instance, like you can see me here, but I can't see the camera, right? So this is quite nice. In general, this little camera just up there, right, just using this little gap. So yeah, there are definitely some nice cams on this map because of the elevations for sure. And then we come to Deadlock, and again, the sonic sensors I think will be actually not too bad, because again, I think this will be a heavy kind of exec map, and there's a lot of places where people might be jumping around and, you know, making noise in general, you know, to do some kind of crazy stuff on the map. And so the sonic sensors will be good for it, right? Like, we talk about the sonic sensor not being a full trip, but there actually is this position kind of on the map where, you know, if you go from here to here and you jump across, you have to make noise doing that, right? So the sensor will then go off. The problem is you can't do this before the barrier starts. There's no way of kind of doing that because the barrier starts all the way back here. There's nothing to kind of put it on to allow you to do that. So you do have to do this at the start of the round once the round starts, but it will be pretty cool. I think this will be a pretty heavy exec map, and therefore, you know, Deadlock, the barrier will be good. Obviously, the GravNet is a big thing and will cover a lot of space, so that's going to be pretty good in this in general. So yeah, Deadlock, I think, will have those advantages going as well. So I think probably not for like pro play or anything like that, but if you are in ranked, like, I think that the Deadlock wall will be pretty good. Okay, now interestingly enough, when we come to Killjoy, the dev said that, you know, in their playtest, Cypher was generally more popular than Killjoy just because of the kind of global presence of Cypher. But of course, we have seen on maps like Icebox and Pearl, which I think are kind of the most similar maps to Abyss, that those are Killjoy maps. Right, so I wouldn't rule out Killjoy just yet, and I think one thing in particular that Killjoy has over the other Sentinels is you can just come and put like a turret back here, and, you know, this turret will watch all of mid for you, right? Or on the other side as well, right? If you wanted to, you can come and put a turret, you know, something like this, and it will see people up there, and it will see people down there, and will watch all of mid for you, right? And like, you can be on the A side of the map if you do this turret, or if you do the other one that I did at the start, you can be on the B side of the map, right? And you can be on the site, right? So here I can be on the B site as well. Obviously, the nano swarms are good for post plants on attack side, but also this defense side in terms of stopping the plant as well, right? Similar, akin to Icebox, right? Like, that's just going to be good. And that's, you know, obviously you think on this B site as well, just, you know, putting a turret, you know, up here. You know, if they don't ever destroy this, that means that they're not coming B. If they don't ever destroy this kind of turret. Some of the Killjoy lockdowns, like if you can get a lockdown down here, the round is over, right? The round is over if you can do this, because it looks like there's a small gap in this corner, but I'm telling you, this is a smaller gap than it looks like on the map, because there's no way you're fitting in there, which means that you have to come all the way back here, and the round is over. Right, if we're playing retake and that's my Killjoy lockdown, it's see you later, right? That's a really, really strong lockdown. And the same is true on A, right? There's some really good lockdowns on A as well for this defensive side. So I do think that Killjoy, you know, like if I come and do a lockdown here, right? This again is a really good lockdown. It's in a very safe position. You know, it's gonna be a small little gap here that, again, I mean, you could spam through this if you want to, you know, towards these angles, and you know that, like, they have a very, very small pocket to play in. Like, if all 5 people are coming back here, you know, you're just gonna destroy them. On attack side, they're not as amazing, I don't think, right? Like, this again will be a decent lockdown. You know, it's not bad, and it's particularly good if you want to, you know, come up here and try and take this. But, you know, there is still a space back here, but it's still fine, right? It's not awful. And on B as well, I don't think there's, like, it's not too amazing, because you do start pretty far away, right? Like if you do a lockdown here, again, it's not amazing, right? Because there is still, you know, quite a bit of space that they can play in from back here. So, you know, there is still some limitations to the attacking lockdowns, but I think particularly for defense, some of those lockdowns are very, very good. And I do think that Killjoy actually has a decent chance on this map. And then finally, we have Sage. And, well, speaking of Icebox, I mean, there are some crazy things that you can do with Sage on this map. I am not a Sage main, but there are some pretty crazy things you can do here with Sage. You know, I'm sure, you know, Grim has experimented a lot with Sage rules, but, you know, stuff like this, pretty funny, right? It's pretty funny. I mean, you can just chill off the map. You know, just chill out here. There's going to be a lot of crazy things, and you know, go and watch Grim play or whatever if you want to find those walls. But I'll talk about why Sage will be meta in terms of pro play. Because, again, this is Icebox-esque. And if we are talking about spam post plants, of course, well, Sage is good against spam post plants, right? Sage is good against that kind of stuff. You think about defusing the spike just here with a wall up like that. Sage is good for that stuff. And if we're talking about attack side as well, you know, getting the spike down, Sage is going to be good for that, right? If our goal is just to get the spike down and then run away, which I think it probably will be, you know, having a Sage wall, I'm thinking it's something like this, where you try and wall across like this, right? They can't see you from in heaven just there. You come and plant on this. You stop them from jumping on this, right? So if they can't jump on this little box here, you know, they can't get up above you. You come and plant the spike right here, and then you run away, right? Like this, I think, will be meta, right? So you do this kind of wall. You then are just running away, and you're playing for your spam, right? Like Icebox S, think Icebox B site. This is how you are playing this, right? And I think particularly here on A, that's going to be incredibly effective. On B, it's not quite the same. It's not quite as easy. Probably be wanting to do something akin to this, right? Something like this. Again, trying to stop them from being able to jump up on this, right? So that they can't jump up here. They can't jump above the wall. Problem is that with this, of course, is up there. But, you know, that's where obviously you'll need potentially some help. You know, it could be planting here. It could be planting there. It could be planting anywhere kind of in between. But I think, again, just getting the spike down and then playing, you know, for a stupid post plant, you know, could be very effective. I think that Sage will be very, very strong on this map. So yeah, for Sentinels, I actually think it's pretty competitive, and I'm not actually going to recommend, you know, anything really, because I think all 5 of the different Sentinels are playable, certainly in ranked very playable. I do suspect that Sage will be a very, very good option in general. But between like Chamber, Killjoy, and Cypher, I think there's a debate there to be had, and I'm not going to recommend that any is the obvious clear choice, because I think they all have their pros and cons. And then come back tomorrow to find out which duelists and initiators will be meta on Abyss.